He's not listening. I really hope the people who wanted this workshop will actually turn up to this workshop, because this is for them. Yeah. Hello, Asian Penguin. Oh yeah, everyone please sign the ARC form if you haven't done already. It's in the link below. Today we are going to be talking about monitors, all about monitors. Yeah, as the title suggests, this is a beginner workshop, so you don't have to be an expert in computers in order to know what's going on. We teach you so that you can get up to speed. I think we should just wait till 5:05. Today's workshop's going to be pretty short, so yeah, don't worry about like losing concentration. Will this be in the exam? Ideally, you should study all the dot points. Should wait 15 minutes so I can chat as on bus. 2 days till I get the car back. Okay, so let's hang in this chat until tomorrow. Yeah. Yeah, by the way, I just saw the next episode of What If today. It just came out. It's called What If Ultron Won. Ooh, ominous. Okay, let's make a start actually. Alright, so all about monitors today. We're gonna get you up to speed with monitors, how to pick them, and how to pair them with the graphics card of your choosing. Welcome to another workshop Wednesday. Yay, woo! Yeah, I'm very happy to be Shush, Conrad. I'm very happy to be talking to you again this week in another installment. First things first, a reminder that our AGM is next Wednesday. Please turn up. We need to meet the quorum of at least 15 people, or our AGM cannot go on. No, we don't want that happening. Please come. Please vote for exec roles. Please apply for any exec role that you might be interested in. If you want PCSOC to become great, then now's your chance. And for those of you who don't know what AGM is, it's every year due to ARC requirements we have to re-elect the entire exec team. So everyone has a shot of being an exec for 2022. Please join our Facebook group if you haven't already. 5 out of 7 would make America great again. Yeah, make PCSOC great again. Now's your chance. Yeah, it's an early AGM. We figured that it won't clash with other societies, but yes, yeah, we should get it over and done with, very quickly. And it's not in the slides, but because next week AGM is also going to be on Wednesday, it falls on our usual movie night slot, right? So we're going to be actually watching Free Guy after the AGM. So if you've been waiting to watch that in cinemas and couldn't, now's your chance. Okay? Very exciting week. Yeah, another disclaimer as usual. Don't quote us if you blow up your computer. And what we say is subjective and for the memes. I'll try not to say anything elitist because that's not a good thing. We do want to be very inclusive. So if you like consoles, we love you. You like clacky keyboards or quiet keyboards, rubber dome keyboards, we love you equally. I own rubber dome keyboard. Everyone's experiences are valid. That's what this is trying to say. And this is the overview for tonight. 6 to 7 o'clock after the workshop, we'll have a break. and we'll come back with our Marvel movie night with a new episode of What If and Star Wars late at night. Let's make a start. What makes a good monitor? There are some obvious things, which I hope that most of you already know, being beginners, and not so obvious things which sort of you kind of pick up and learn when you hang around computer circles. Tonight I'm just gonna briefly go through all of these and just to get you up to speed with what these terms really mean, so that next time we talk about it in like the chats or whatever, and workshops, you know, it won't sound like complete gibberish. First of all, probably most important is the resolution of your monitor. There is a measurement called pixels per inch, which measures how big each pixel is. So the higher the amount of pixels that are crammed in per inch of the screen, well, that means the finer the detail is, and the less pixelated it becomes. So this is an example of low PPI. This is an example of high PPI, and mathematically it's measured by the total pixel count divided by the panel area. And what this means is that in higher resolutions, screen objects appear smaller. In monitors, we say we usually aim for around 110 ppi, which is ideal. If you don't know how to calculate it, it's fine. You know, usually when you look at the third-party review of monitors, you can you can find this information very easily. The common resolutions, you might have seen these, are as follows. You have Full HD, which is 1080p, Quad HD, which we call 1440p, which is a bit higher, and the ultra wides, which are those really wide, funky-looking monitors, which are often curved. Some people like the curve, you know, it's a matter of personal preference. And then you have the high resolution 4K, which is this resolution, and then you have 8K, which is actually so that each dimension has twice the number of pixels. So using our mathematics, it means 4 times the total number of pixels. What are they commonly used for? Well, most people will have a full HD screen. I recommend that you should at least get a 10440p if you want a really good experience for gaming or productivity, just for anything. And in addition, you can get like high refresh rate monitors, which go up to 165 Hz or even 200 Hz. It's best balance for quality and refresh rate, because there are like high refresh rate, ultra wides and 4K screens, but they're much more expensive. They're much more enthusiast tier. So it's only if you really have the money that you can fork out. Yes, for those of you who don't know what refresh rate is, it's basically a measurement of how often the screen refreshes itself. So here, this is a video which nicely illustrates the refresh rate. So it's like let's do a little experiment. Try to blink once per second, right? Close your eyes, open your eyes, close your eyes, open your eyes, and wave your hand in front of your face, or look at this, the 120 ball, right? It will seem like every time you open your eye, the 120 ball jumps, right? And then now you blink your eyes really fast, right? The 120 ball's movement is much smoother. So that's what's happening here. You know, it's like you're blinking a lot more times per second, and that gives you a more smoother illusion of movement. The standard refresh rate is 60 Hz, which means that the screen refreshes 60 times per second, and as you can see here, it sort of looks quite smooth. So a lot of gaming monitors nowadays have refresh rates of 120 Hz or more, and well, a lot of people will tell you this cliche, you know, it's buttery smooth, and it really is. The higher refresh rate you have, the more butter you have, the less stutter you have. There's a thing called overclocking. You can actually overclock your monitor to manually drive up your refresh rate. It's not very common, but in some monitors you can actually push it above factory spec. Let's say you buy a cheap monitor that's meant to be 60 Hz, but somehow you find out that you can manually set it to 120 Hz. That's called overclocking. For AMD, you can use custom resolution utility, and same with NVIDIA. For NVIDIA, however, you can also use these additional tools. This was once very common in Korean monitors, where you'd buy like a 1440p monitor that's meant to be 60 Hz, and people found out that, wow, you can actually drive it up to 100 Hz and above. And this is basically free performance and free just free features, which were normally like triple or quadruple the price of the monitor. Yeah, so this is what people mean by overclocking a monitor. It's a thing. Also, a lot of gaming monitors nowadays, a must-have is G-Sync or FreeSync, which means adaptive refresh rate technologies. What this means is that sometimes your frame rate drops because your graphics card or CPU can't push high enough frame rates because the game is too demanding, or too much detail or action, whatever. And if you don't have FreeSync or G-Sync on your monitor will continue to output at 60 Hz whilst your frame rate drops, and that ends up causing stutter. What G-Sync and FreeSync does is that it syncs your refresh rate. So if your refresh rate drops, then the monitor's refresh rate drops as well. So if your FPS drops, then your refresh rate drops as well. And that turns out to seem somewhat smoother than if you don't have it. So that's something to consider when you're doing gaming. You have to know the connectivity and all the ports. You have to know that not all ports can drive very high resolutions and refresh rates, such as 1440p and 4K. And it all comes down to the bandwidth. Some monitors have a mixed combination of ports. So I actually have a monitor that has one display port, which looks like this, and two HDMI 1.4 ports. And this is a gotcha, because here are some common things that can trick you. If you want to have 1440p monitor at 60 Hz, then often they'll have a DVI port on the monitor. But it's not any normal DVI, it's actually a dual link DVI, which means you need a dual link DVI cable, and it's different to a normal DVI. This is a normal DVI, but a dual link DVI has, see, these extra pins over here. And if you don't have this, then it will not be able to drive this very high resolution, which requires a lot of bandwidth. Same thing with 4K over HDMI. HDMI 1.4 is a very, very, very common interface, and it uses the exact same connector as the newer HDMI 2.0. The difference is that HDMI 2.0 can drive 4K at 60 Hz, but 1.4 can only drive it at 30 Hz. And if you remember the previous slide, 30 Hz is much more stuttery compared to 60 Hz. And so you have to be very, very careful what ports you have on your monitor in order to decide how it connects with your graphics card. In general, a rule of thumb, lowest bandwidth is VGA and DVI. I didn't even talk about this. This is abysmal. Highest bandwidth in general is DisplayPort. This is in generally the safest. All in all, be mindful of the port types, especially on older monitors or graphics cards. A very technical note, sometimes you'll hear stuff like Chromosome Sampling 444, 420, and color depth. And let me just explain what this is very quickly. So Chromosome Sampling is actually a way to sort of cheat the system. So to minimize the bandwidth of, let's say, a 4K 60 Hz stream, so that it can be driven by something that normally can't drive 4K 60 Hz, such as HDMI 1.4. And the way they do this is by compressing the color channels And yeah, this is sort of complicated. You can look over the slides after, but essentially what it does is that it just takes out some information that's sort of not that important to the image quality. The image quality reduces as a result when you take out some of the color detail, but not too much because they did it in a very smart way. And yeah, the main thing is to know that sometimes you'll have TVs or monitors that have caveats. Like you can drive 4K at 60 Hertz over HDMI 1.4, provided that the chromosome sampling has to be decreased a little bit. So if this is not a compromise you're willing to take, then don't do it. Also, color depth. Almost all monitors, well, generally have 8-bit color, which means there are 8 bits assigned to each channel. That sums up to 24-bit RGB, and this is equivalent to 16 million colors. And this diagram here, it just basically means the amount of colors that can make up an image. So the less and less colors that can make up the image, as you can see, the more coarser it looks, until you get to 1 bit when you can only use 0 or 1. That means, in this case, or green or white, and that loses a lot of detail. If you're a professional graphics designer or creator, then consider looking into a 10-bit monitor, 10-bit color, which means 30-bit deep color, many more colors, much more faithful to a photograph that you're editing or a graphics that you're designing. If you're another criteria which is very, very important is input lag. The input lag is the delay before an input is registered on a monitor. And so to basically put it simply, if you move your mouse, how long is it before the mouse actually moves on the monitor? And this is important because if you play FPS gaming or some MOBAs, you need very, very high responsiveness. There's no use of you, responding to an enemy who has, turned a corner with a gun to your face, and you're missing out on like 50 milliseconds of reaction time. That's a lot in competitive gaming. So that's why you need a monitor with less than like 15 to 25 milliseconds of input lag for if you do competitive gaming. In general, around 15 milliseconds is okay, and then it starts to get pretty ridiculous after that. So the next question you might be asking is, well, how can I tell from the monitor specs? Well, the answer is actually you can't. You actually have to refer to a third-party benchmark online, such as Rtings or notebookcheck.com, and they will have measured rigorously, like scientifically rigorously, the input lag in terms of the milliseconds. Most of the time, interestingly, they use a cathode ray tube monitor as a reference, and it's assumed this fatty is assumed to have 0 milliseconds input lag. Rtings are a blessing, not just for monitors. Yes, word, word. Yeah, so really refer to those benchmarks. Now that I've talked about cathode ray tube, we have to talk about panel types. There are multiple panel types which affect the quality of the image. Well, most of you are probably not looking for a cathode ray tube to monitor to game on, but actually it's fat but really, really fast. It's because of the nature of how it works. Anyways, most of the time nowadays we use flat screens, right? And one type of flat screen which is very common is TN, and it's characterized by very, very low input lag, so all of the professional gaming monitors are almost always TN. Unfortunately, they suffer from washed out colors. They have technically it's what's called a gamma shift, yeah. Especially when you look at it from an angle, you can see them getting washed out. Second type of panel is called VA, vertical alignment. It's it actually has really, really good high contrast ratio, meaning it can generate really, really black blacks. So for TN, right, even if it's trying to show like a black screen, it'll appear great, but not the case with VA. Has decent color accuracy, much better than TN at least, but it still suffers from a gamma shift. And what's really bad about VA mainly is it has a very high input lag, often almost ridiculous. And then you have IPS, which is most computer people will tell you to get an IPS panel because it has the balance of pretty much everything. Has very high color accuracy, and almost all the professional monitors for graphic design are based in IPS. It has no color shift, so when you view from the angle, it doesn't get darker or lighter, nothing. It looks exactly as it looks like front on. And that also means it has an exceptional viewing angle up to like 178 degrees, which is huge, right? When you think about it, I mean, it leaves only 2 degrees between you and the monitor. What's not that good about it is that it has a medium input lag, but still a bit better than VA, but nowhere near as good as TN. But in general, it's very expensive. And then you have Oled, which is I think it's sort of getting pretty popular now. Oled is very, very good in color, very, very black blacks, and they can have very, very low input lag. I think the newest line of OLED monitors from LG have 10 milliseconds of input lag or 15, so it's really, really fast. But unfortunately, one feature is that the pixels can burn in. So what it means is if you leave, let's say, the Windows screen for too long, then without any movement, right? Then eventually the start bar will appear permanently as a feature on your screen. Just like if you look at the sun, then there's an after image when you close your eyes. It's the same thing. It's same appearance, I guess. So yeah, decide what you want. Oh, I skipped the slide, didn't I? Decide what you want. In general, these two are much more expensive. OLED's very, very expensive. For media creators, you also need to take into account the color coverage, actually. So most of the time, the color accuracy of a monitor is measured by the amount of color space of the sRGB standard, which is this one, it can cover, or how much of the Adobe RGB spectrum it can cover, which is a bit more expansive. And unless if you get the really, really professional monitors, which cost a lot, you often don't get very high coverage. Often people just go for 99% sRGB coverage. Yeah, so if you make films, do whatever, do designs, then you should aim for at least 99% sRGB, or your colors will turn out wrong because you're looking at the wrong colors when you're designing. Other small things end up being very important as well. Brightness is a thing. No use in having a very, very dim monitor, right? Up to around 370 to 410 nits is fine. That's the units in which brightness is measured. For laptops, it's a bit different. You need almost up to 800 or 1,000 nits if you want to be able to have a good viewing experience despite being in the sun. Also, there are monitors which flicker. A lot of the benchmarks are a godsend because they'll test whether there is flicker, because sometimes the way in which brightness is controlled in the monitor is that the panel backlight is turned on and off very fast. So the faster it's sort of switched on and off, the brighter it sort of appears to be. It's sort of another optical illusion. It's a cheap way to control the brightness, and a lot of people might get sensitive to that. So if you're sensitive, then definitely look for this in the benchmarks. Also, uniformity goes without saying. IPS monitors are vulnerable to this kind of horrible corner glow, and for TN, also has like really bad glow. There's also backlight bleed, which comes down to how well the monitor is manufactured and whether the panel's warped and stuff like that. So these all come from reviews, pretty much. Here are some questions that that one of you might ask. You know, what is 1 millisecond response time? You know, I always see that in you know the M-Wave catalog. It's the time taken for a pixel to fully change color, and it's like in this image here, there is sort of like a residual after image from the last sort of frame, and if the response time isn't high enough, then you get a lot of after images, and this is what we call ghosting. So this guy, he looks like it looks like a ghost, or has a ghost following him. Yeah, you get the point. Does higher refresh rate lower input lag? That might be another question. Actually, no. Input lag is actually a completely different thing to refresh rate. But that being said, higher refresh rate monitors tend to be designed better for gaming, so that they generally have a lower input lag. Unfortunately, you cannot overclock the lag away because it has no relation to input lag. Yeah, I did mention Korean monitors. This is less relevant now actually, because there are much fewer Korean monitors. They used to be very popular because they could be overclocked and they were really cheap. But yeah, if you do end up finding a cheap Korean monitor, ask PCSoc, look at reviews, look at forums. Yeah, that's all I can say. Ask us, look at benchmarks. It's the only things you can do. Last but not least, televisions as monitors. You have to take very special care, especially if you're serious about monitors, because televisions usually have very high input lag. Although some have game mode, it's still not great. Game mode actually reduces the input lag on televisions by just bypassing all the extra, I don't know, internet features or enhancements, whatever. Often they have very poor input support. Often the Chromosome sampling is actually very low, so that allows them to drive quote-unquote HDMI 1.4 4K 60 Hertz. Yeah, that kind of stuff. So that what I mean by that is that they often don't have the latest and greatest interfaces. They'll have HDMI 1.4 instead of HDMI 2.0, and they'll use Chromosome sampling to make up for that inability to drive high bandwidth. They don't always list the panel type, although nowadays manufacturers make a big deal of that you have to know that it's an Oled panel, that it's the latest marketing buzzword. Sometimes they'll say it's 100 Hertz or 200 Hertz, like this monitor here from David Jones. That's bullshit, because what it doesn't mean that it will actually take 100 or 200 Hertz from your graphics card and play all of the frames. It will only take 60 Hertz, but it will interpolate the frames to give an illusion of smoothness. Also, they don't have your G-Sync and FreeSync that you need when you're gaming sometimes, and mounting options, which are your VESA mounts, are limited. That's not family-friendly language. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. Yeah, so this is in general what I recommend for now, for your GPUs. Like, well, in saying that, I want to stress that you really have to look at the benchmarks of the game you want to play and the application you want to do in order to choose your graphics card more properly. But this is just sort of like an average recommendation for 2021 games. And with that, let's look at some really cool monitors. Yeah, so this Gigabyte M32q, it's a 32-inch monitor, IPS, 1440p. So I did mention that 1440p is a really good balance between cost and performance, right? It has 165 Hertz max refresh rate, and actually benchmarks have confirmed that it can actually go up to 170. It's got FreeSync, which is great. It's also got a built-in KVM switch. So what that means is you can push a button, if you can, and it can swap your keyboard and mouse to another machine. So if you have USBs from 2 different machines connected to the monitor, and you also have your mouse and keyboard connected to the out sort of upstream USB ports on your monitor, you can press a button and you can switch inputs. You can switch between controlling computer 1 and computer 2. Has picture-in-picture, which is really, really important. Well, for me at least, I personally really like picture-in-picture, which means you can show 2 different inputs at the same time on the monitor. And well, it's 8-bit, so it's a consumer monitor, but it does have HDR features and 99% sRGB, which is still good for media creators. The brightness is normal, and it has all of the good inputs, so to speak. These will all drive maximum 4K actually at 60 Hz, which turns out to be enough for 1440p at 165 Hz. The price is $499 at Centacom. It's not cheap, but it is an enthusiast monitor, which is generally cheaper than other ones in this category, especially being the world first monitor with a KVM switch built in. If this is something you want, then definitely I say go for it. And then this one is just for the memes. Here, it's not really a monitor, but it's a home cinema, home theater television. Look at this one. It comes in 4K, 8K Ultra HD, 325-inch. How good's that? This is. Anyone know how many meters it is? It's 8 meters. It's 8 meters something. It's got Oled screen, and the brightness can go up to 800 nits. So you need sunglasses, I guess. And look at the price. It's like, yeah, no one can even afford that. So this is for like those very super ballers who have like a big mansion to put it in. Yeah. I wish I had one of these, but not really. The price is actually the majority of the cost is actually paying for someone to teach you how to use it, which I found pretty funny. And also apparently it's like they include a service package or something. People come on site and maintain it. It's kind of stupid, but anyways, $1.7 million monitor. Anyways, that's all for the actual workshop. We have an AGM next week, and it's a ritual every year at our AGM to present awards to nominated people in certain categories. First category is the PC SOC Competence Award. So who screwed up the most this year? Put your votes in. I'm actually going to create a thread in the workshop chat right now for people to nominate who the most quote-unquote competent person of PC SOC. So who blew up their computer this year? Who did something really, really stupid? Yeah. I'll create a thread now. PC SOC 2021 Competence Award nomination. And I'll leave the thread open for a week before archiving. Okay? Second award is who has the best build that makes you just salivate so much? Who has the most envy-inducing build? I'd like to point out that in our Discord we have a hashtag showcase channel. If you didn't know that exists, well, now you know. It's a place where everyone can post their builds. It doesn't have to be great, like full water cooled, well, $10,000. It can be anything, anything you're proud of, not proud of. Any build is a build. No, that's not someone's PC here, unfortunately. It would have been pretty funny if it was. Not funny for the person, though. unfortunately. Yeah. So nominations are open for the best build. So what you do is just you go into the thread. I can't create threads in general, and plus it sort of clutters everything in general. And when we do our AGM, it will be in the theater as well. So it's just right here. Yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, so what you do is you go into the thread and you just type the name of whoever had the best build, and then the best mod award, very wholesome award, who had the smartest ideas for build modding this year. Or if you just joined PCSoc, then who's caught your eye, who's inspired you. Let us know so that we can give them an award during the AGM. Okay. And that's it. In week 5, our very first advanced workshop for this year will be water cooling part 1, and then followed by water cooling part 2. So please tune into that. We'll show you how to do various water cooling techniques. And that's all. Time to answer some questions. Thank you, everyone. Please sign the ARC form. I'm linking it in the chat right now. Will this be an exam? It's gonna be a 3-hour AGM again. What the heck? We had a 3-hour AGM? Sadly, most people are on FB. PCSoc Telegram. Modding a monitor bezel. Yes. Yeah, so what people have done with monitors before is that they've either taken the bezel completely off or just shaved it off after they've... Well, you don't shave it with it's still on the monitor, you take off the bezel and then you use your best Dremel work and shave it off. People that paint their bezel. I painted my bezel. I had a Korean monitor called the Achiever. Yeah, for historical purposes, I'm typing this in the chat. Achiever Shimian. Yeah, it's a Korean brand, and I bought, it was a 1440p 60Hz monitor, and I bought it for like 185 from someone. And yeah, I had a black and yellow build at that time, so I noticed that the white bezel on the monitor could come off, so I painted it yellow. It's recorded. Yes, it's recorded. Still recording right now. We are in Australia, we use pixels per centimeters. Yeah, well, yes, ideally, but everything online is in freedom units, unfortunately. And Eric just posted his really nice build. Ultra wide gaming support. Peep hands. Pretty much. Yeah, it's such a quote unquote exotic resolution to a lot of standards. So that's pretty bad. Meanwhile, the laptops with 768p. It was good once upon a time, wasn't it? Until we had like full HD screens, and now we've got 4K screens and laptops. Meanwhile, pros with 360 Hz. There are 390 Hz monitors now. Wow. Can you even distinguish that? Like, can you even tell the difference? Like, surely there's like, up to a point, you can't really tell, and it just becomes bullshit when people say, oh, this 3000 hertz monitor is better than this 2000 hertz monitor because I can see the difference. Some people can't see past 60 hertz. Yeah, indeed, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you play CSGO, you really need a TN monitor. Or you can use a fatty. That 0 milliseconds input lag. Should note they have a minimum drop rate for G-Sync and FreeSync, usually 48 hertz. Yes, yes. Because it, well, it makes no sense to drop down to like 10 hertz, for example. You for obvious reasons. DVI cables, real chats use VGA. Yes, yes. If you're yeah, VGA is still widely used in servers and data centers, which have those rack mount KVMs. So yeah, for the interests of you know our audience, this workshop today was only focused on gaming applications, not data centers. How are CRTs fast? Because they're just electrons just blasted at the screen, which is, yeah, like it's just, I think it's just comes down to a very simple circuit, right? It just gets the input and immediately converts it into really fast electrons. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Dark colors use less power on OLEDs too, if I remember correctly. Yes, that is correct. OLEDs are basically an array of like, if you have like 2560 by 1440 pixels, then that's how many LEDs there will be in an OLED. So each pixel is an LED. When you need black, the LED just switches off. That's how you get the really, really black blacks. Yeah. Yeah. Ultra wide black bar gang. Yeah, unfortunately. Dang. Okay, I will I will promise you personally that we will not have a 3-hour AGM. However, if you count the movie night that comes after, then technically it will be 7-hour AGM. Yeah. That's it. I'll have to dash off to the PC Stock weekly exec meeting in 15 minutes, but we will come back at 7 p.m. for movie night. Thank you very much. Please sign the ARC form. Please nominate your nominee for each of these categories for the AGM. We really want to know who did the best or worst. Thank you. I'll upload